In this episode, we are going over our girlfriend's budget sheet and see to her financial goals.
Welcome to the Cats of Wall Street. I'm Nancy.
And I'm Fiona. We are Canadian professionals who have been in the financial industry for over 10 years, and we started this online series to talk about money from a woman's perspective.
If you have questions or topics you want to know more about, please leave a comment and we will try to incorporate it into our future episodes. Now let's get started. Welcome to our happy hour. Good.
Very nice. So,
well, the 90-something days of January has finally ended, and somehow it is already the middle of February. How are those resolutions going along?
Well, I definitely have been drinking a ton of liquid, with you especially, so thanks for keeping me accountable. And Lunar New Year just ended as well, so maybe that's why New Year felt like forever. Now that I'm married, I no longer get red envelopes, which is very lame.
Yeah, only people who are single receive red envelopes from married people, so you will have to start budgeting for those next year, going forward.
Whew, better start increasing my liquid consumption budget too, then.
Speaking of budgeting, how did it go with your budget sheet? What surprised you the most?
Well, I always knew that dining out and shopping were my worst habits, so I had been trying to keep that to a minimum. I budgeted for only a few fancy dinners during Christmas and told my girlfriends Christmas is canceled this year because of my multiple weddings as well as my trip to Hong Kong. But I just reviewed my December statement and it turns out I still overspent because I bought a down jacket to survive this extra cold winter, #climate change. So don't worry, I bought black. So it's timeless and it's an investment for many winters to come. What about you?
Black, like our soul.
Yes.
Black is classic. Can't go wrong with that. Why do you think I always wear black? Well, for my budget sheet, I was most surprised by how much I actually spent on going out for lunch. I always knew that bringing your own lunch is the financially smart thing to do, but to actually plan for it every day is very challenging.
Yeah, I'm working downtown. It's so easy to stop by the food court or to pick up a lunch wrap at a coffee shop. And there are so many options out there, especially if you're not a good cook like me.
And I try to save by getting something small, but even just a salad can easily cost $10, not to mention if I were to buy breakfast or coffee in the morning.
That's easily $20 a day. If you do that every day during the week, it will be about $100. For the month, it will total up to be $400 to $500, which is almost the cost of a flight nowadays. And that is not even including dinners or food during the weekend. No more guac for you, Nance.
Guess I will have to stick with my liquid lunch and dinner.
Yeah, isn't vodka made of potatoes? That's your vegetable intake. Add in some wine in there, you got your vitamin C. All part of a balanced diet. Oh man, talking about bills makes me want to drink too. Ugh.
Well, this brings us to our topic of the day. Expenses. Drink up, bitches.
So, in our last episode, we talked about budgeting and how it is a good tool to help you keep track of your spending. The commonly known budget formula is income minus expenses equals savings. But as discussed, even though some people assume they will have left over to save, there's usually very little or none left for their savings at the end of the month.
To get started on your financial goals, you will need to make savings a priority by rearranging the budget formula to income minus savings equals expenses, as in pay your savings account first, rather than saving whatever is left over.
If you have not already, please download our free budget sheet in the description below. The budget sheet will help you keep track of your monthly cash flow, be more mindful about how you spend your money, and eventually help you reach your savings goal.
For this episode, we will go over our friend's budget sheet to help her reach her financial goals. She has asked to remain anonymous, so for her sake, let's call her Susan. Susan is a strong, independent woman living on her own in the city, working at a medium-sized firm. Susan makes an after-tax income of $4,000 a month. Her goals are to save up for a new phone, a trip to Napa with her girlfriends in September, and eventually a down payment for a condo, so she can stop renting.
Let us first start off with the expenses. As mentioned in our last episode, there are two types of expenses: non-controllable or fixed expenses, and controllable or discretionary expenses.
Non-controllable or fixed expenses are usually difficult and more costly to change due to long-term contractual obligations such as a lease agreement, a rental contract, a mortgage, or a cell phone plan if you're locked in. There is usually a penalty or fees charged for breaking the contract. These kinds of expenses are usually fixed in amount and usually due around the same time of the month.
On the other hand, controllable or discretionary expenses are easier to change because you literally have more control and discretion as to how you spend this money. This would include the nice-to-have items such as dining out, a new pair of shoes, lash extensions, and hair highlights.
First, let's look at Susan's non-controllable expenses, which include $1,600 for rent. This is actually not bad since she lives just outside of downtown. It looks like her rent also includes water and utilities.
So, next is her cell phone bill, which is $80, and internet and TV at $100, which I guess is the average going rate.
She also pays $150 towards her student loan, yay education, $150 for gas and transportation, an average of $200 for car insurance, which sounds like she has a pretty good driving record. Lastly, Susan pays $70 for her gym membership. Her total non-controllable expenses add up to $2,350.
Next is Susan's controllable expenses, which are groceries for $400. This seems a bit low, but she spends $800 dining out every month, which is basically going out every weekend and buying lunches at work almost every day. Girls gotta eat.
She also spends $200 towards entertainment, which sounds reasonable considering concert tickets can be almost $200.
The last item on the list is personal care, which costs Susan $150.
2 words, eye cream. I'm just kidding. I don't know what she spends it on, but makeup and skincare is expensive, so appreciate all of this. Lots of effort here.
Yeah, girl. Hashtag self-care. Well, this brings Susan's total controllable expenses to $1,550.
Susan has $500 in her savings and $700 in her checkings account.
Looking at Susan's budget sheet, it looks like she is balanced, and at the end of the day, she still has $100 left over to put into her savings account. However, $100 is not much of a buffer. $100 can be easily spent if she goes over her data plan or has an extra night out on a long weekend, or if she breaks a heel during her night out and needs a new pair of shoes.
Trust, that happens. Susan, be sloppy.
Sloppy Susan. Too bad her real name won't have the same ring to it. Looking at her savings account balance of $500, it does not seem like she's actually saving $100 a month, which means there are spontaneous expenses that were not listed on this monthly budget sheet.
I told you. Susan, be sloppy.
We love Susan, though.
Yeah. Even if we assume she has no spontaneous spending on top of her usual monthly expenses, at a rate of $100 per month, she will save $1,200 at the end of the year. If she were to need new brakes for her car, that alone could deplete her whole year's savings in one go. Before she goes out and buy a new phone or book her trip to Napa, she should build up a rainy day fund.
Ideally, Susan should have at least 3 months worth of fixed expenses set aside as an emergency fund in case of any unexpected expenses. In her case, 3 months worth is about $7,000.
In order to help Susan get started on her savings, she would need to make savings a priority. Let's rearrange Susan's budget to income minus savings equal expenses. It is recommended that 20% of the after-tax income be set aside for savings and 50% for fixed or non-controllable expenses. and 30% for discretionary or controllable expenses. Since Susan's after-tax income is $4,000, she should try to set aside $800 a month for her savings. That leaves her with $2,000 for non-controllable expenses and $1,200 for the controllable expenses.
If Susan managed to save $800 a month, by the end of the year, she would have saved up $9,600. That would be enough to fund her emergency fund of $7,000, pay for her trip to Napa, and buy a new phone. Yes, honey. Cheers to Susan.
Cheers. That's what I'm talking about. Get this girl to Napa with a new phone for the gram. But before we get too excited, let us review Susan's budget sheet to see if that goal is realistic. Starting off with the discretionary expenses, because as mentioned previously, it is easier to decrease these expenses than the fixed expenses. So looking at her discretionary expenses, her biggest one is food. I guess $1,200 sounds about right. $800 for dining out, $400 on groceries. Like me, her dining out expense is so high because she goes out for lunch almost every day. But unlike me, she has a life and goes out on the weekends. Whew, self-burn. Self-five. Good one, Nance.
Okay. Self-cheers.
No, self-cheers.
Moving on. To help Susan cut down her food expense, she might consider packing lunches to work or pre-game at home before going out.
Instead of girls' night out, she can host us and make her friends at her home.
Party at Susan!
BYOB to help Susan save.
This might help Susan cut down dining out from $800 to $400 a month, but this would likely increase the groceries expense by about $100 to $200.
Susan might have to start buying in bulk and doing meal prep Sundays.
By cutting down her dining expenses and sticking to the budget, she should be able to save an extra $300 a month. Next item on the list is entertainment and personal care.
I'm assuming entertainment expenses include things like alcohol, movie tickets, and concerts. Maybe just Netflix and chill at home will be able to save about $50 a month.
$50 only?
I don't know. Maybe she's a heavy drinker. She is our friend after all.
True. Cheers.
Girl
drink. Well, the next item on the list is personal care. She can reduce it by doing her own nails, buying off-brand makeup, and skipping the hair highlights. This could help her save another $50 to $100. Assuming Susan manages to make these changes in her lifestyle, she will be able to lower her discretionary expenses by $400 a month.
If cutting down the discretionary expenses is not enough to help achieve her goals, or if she wants to maintain her lifestyle, then she may have to consider cutting down her fixed expenses, such as selling her car and walk or bus to work. This will help save about $200 that she spends on car insurance, or Susan can cancel her gym membership and follow workout videos online instead. Or push comes to shove, she may have to consider moving further out of the city since living in the city is so expensive and can really put a damper on your effort to save.
If Susan does not want to move out of the city and cannot cut down her expenses more without disrupting her lifestyle, she may also look at ways to increase her income, such as asking for a raise, looking for a higher paying job, or get a part-time job on the weekends. Instead of selling her car, she can become a driver for Uber or Lyft.
But remember, we want to set SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Given her situation, maybe she should start with the minimum recommended 10% savings, which is $400 per month. With $400 set aside every month, she'll be able to save $4,800 by the end of the year.
With $4,800 saved by the end of the year, she may not be able to meet all of her short-term goals, and she would need to prioritize her goals to see what she wants to do first. If going to Napa to eat, pray, love with her girlfriends in September is very important, then maybe she spends about $1,600 on the trip and puts aside $3,200 towards her emergency fund instead. At the end of the day, we are not trying to tell you how to live your life. You do you, baby girl. If you can't cook, date a chef like I did. Life is all about balance, so if you want something, you will have to hustle, babe. Find a way to either increase your income or decrease your expenses.
Or win the lottery. Just kidding. You're more likely to marry a prince. To summarize, the budget sheet is meant to be a tool to help you understand how your spending habits can impact your short-term and long-term goals. And with that in mind, it will also help you prioritize your goals. We will also take a closer look at the savings portion in our future episode.
Thank you for spending your time with us. Please take a moment to subscribe and follow us and tell us how we are doing and what you would like to see in the comments. This episode is also available on Spotify.
Cheers.
Cheers. This is good. How come we've never had this?
Because it never goes on sale.
Gosh.